I'm excited. I know I've been saying that for the past, but I am excited. I'm always excited to be on. I look forward to these days, because we spend so much time looking for guests, seeking guests, researching them. So when you finally get them on screen, it's like I cannot wait to hear from this person, and that's why I'm always excited about our show. Plus, we get an opportunity to share some knowledge to our community, and that's the purpose. That's the reason why we do the things that we're doing. It's not because we don't have anything else to do or we just want to share stories so that we can log off and go back to our regular lives. We want change. And we know that in order for it to be change, we have to create change. We have to share the content, the guests that we have, because you never know who we're going to have on the show and what story they'll have to share with you. A lot of times we look at different people and we think that we know them, by looking at what they're doing or why they're doing it, but you really don't know who that person is and what drives them, until you get to hear their story, right? You don't get to see all that when you just see little 30-second clips on social media or a nice little picture that they may take, during a photo shoot. You don't know who that person is. You may assume that you do, but we don't. And so that's why we have the Black Podcast, because in order to have change in our community, we must share each other's journeys and stories. And these people are very busy people, and they take the time to come out and share their lives and their journeys with us for a whole hour. And so you have to do your part in supporting the Black podcast and the Black community by sharing these videos. So when you see us hit live, you need to be sharing. It takes one click, it takes 1 second. So do your part in contributing to the Black community and helping our youth, and making sure that we're doing the things that we need to do to get where we need to be. So we want to thank you again for supporting us on the Black Podcast for the past year and a half. My name is Dr. Sherelle Hobson. I'm on the co-host here for the Black Podcast. My my background is in education and athletics. And so you'll be able to find out more about us by looking at our website. And then I have my partner in crime over here. He's trying to act like he
Yeah.
don't.
I'm outnumbered today.
You're always
And
outnumbered.
I just feel like we're gonna have an action-packed show, and I don't even want to talk about myself, but just the fact that, like Sherelle mentioned, we look forward to this day every single week because, for one, we're expanding our network. For two, we're building a network that's got the potential to link arms and really help the next generation. And for three, like just hearing these stories, hearing the story behind where these individuals are today is so impactful because we can see someone like a Dr. Sherelle Hobson and be like, she's a doctor. Life is good. You don't know what she had to walk through. You don't know the trials, the tribulations. So we like to hear, and we're gonna get her to share her story one of these days. But we see great people doing great things across the landscape of our community because we are great and we do great things, but we want to bring them to you and help you realize that they're no different than you or me. They started somewhere and they continue to be consistent in their pursuits, and now they are where they are. And you can do the same, you can be the same. So, with my background being in the psychology space and social work, where I really focus on human behavior, why people do things the way that they do it, what can they do, how can they change how they do what they do to change the results in their life. I actually absolutely love hearing these stories because I can take little pieces from these stories and apply it to my coaching, to my training, to my mentoring, and let these young people know it doesn't matter what your current circumstances are if you know what you desire your future circumstances to be, because you can choose today, start living in your purpose, and that's what we're here for. I'm not going to hold the mic for too much longer. I'm just going to tell everybody, go ahead, get your popcorn and your drinks, get at the edge of your seat so you don't fall over, because this is going to be an action-packed one. I can already feel it. And off of that note, we present to you Principal Samantha Pugh. How's it going? There she is.
It is good. It is good. It is Thursday. Can you guys hear me good? Well,
Yes.
okay. It is Thursday. It is OSG Day. That's my crew, off school grounds, my crew of over 100 principal, black and brown principals doing, disrupting and doing the work every day. So I'm always excited about that. So I'm great. And thank you for having me.
Beautiful.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we thank you for accepting the invite because we know you're busy. Okay,
Oh,
so we see you all over the place. I'm like, okay, she gonna have to make some time. She gonna have to make some time. I don't know where she gonna need to move around, but she gonna need to move it around because
that's
we
right.
need
And I
her
sure did.
on.
I'm super excited. Like, so the same way y'all was researching me, I was researching y'all. I was like, oh, they dope. Like, why we don't know about them? Like, they are super dope. So yeah, now I always have time. I always will make time to do things like this because you never know how you could touch somebody's life, right? Like being in the right place and getting the right word touched and changed my life. So I always try to make time, especially for people that look like me that's in the work, right? Like as the kids say, they in the mud, right? Like we ain't in the mud, but we in the work and we about
Yeah.
this work. And so I'm here for it. So thank you for having me.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I knew you was a hustler when you say you was from New York. I'm like, okay, so
Automatic.
she my speed. She's my speed. You know, Brian is from Mississippi, so we have to. Sometime we may have to just wait a little bit, but he be trying to keep up. But I tell people all the time, like, hey, we just move a little bit different. My family's from North New Jersey.
Yes.
So my dad is always telling me, slow down. You doing too much while he's selling a car, picking up rent. Uh,
Right.
Driving the I'm like, you doing 1,000 things and you wonder where I get it from. So I get so when we start just talking and Brian sitting there like they talking fast and just
Yeah, that's
don't
exactly what it is, right? And it's interesting that you just said that, Sherelle, because I'm sitting in Newark, New Jersey right
okay.
now. Sitting in one of the most beautiful and exciting schools that I've been in a long time where I'm coaching and supporting the principal here. So there's the connection, girlfriend. There's the connection.
There you go. There you go. There you go. So we know that behind every story or every story or every glory is a story,
Yes.
and so we know that you know we don't know enough about you. We see the things that you're doing, and so your life looks like you've always had the red carpet out there, and your life
Nope.
is the world is saying, "Ooh, I wish I was her. I wish I had her life," but they don't know your life, right? So I want to make sure that our guests have a background story about you because we don't talk enough about where we came from and why we're doing the things that we're doing from the very beginning. We've had guests that come on that are very vulnerable and they'll say, "Hey, I'm a product of a prostitute." And now they're, millionaires or whatever that they're doing. And so
Mhm.
people need to know, more about you. So that's why we like to start off with knowing who you are and where you're from and kind of the
Mhm.
dynamics of your family and give us a
Right.
better background.
So I'm a walking testimony. I'm a walking testimony. That's what I tell people. I'm a work in progress, but I'm certainly a walking testimony. I am my mother's dream. That's what she told me. She never thought ever. She knew that I was special, but she never thought that I would ever accomplish as much as I have. I was the apple of my dad's eye. I'm one of over 70 grandchildren, which is very special to me because I'm the first to go and graduate from college out of over 70 grandchildren. I'm the first of his generation. So that's huge. A lot of people carry that as a badge of like a scar, but I carry it with a badge of honor as I carry my family on my back with everything that I do. So I'm from Brooklyn, New York, all day, BK all day. I'm sure y'all probably picked up on that a little bit already. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I have been in education for now officially for 23 years, but I think I started a long time ago. I came from very humble beginnings. I'm a project kid. I'm a project kid. And I grew up in the projects, but my mother always made me feel like I was always special and beyond what my circumstances were. So she was always fought hard. So like when the rest of my friends were going to the failing public school, my mother was taking on dressing dead bodies and things like that in a funeral home to make sure that she could pay for private school for me. So that was I come from a hustler, but I also come from a dreamer. And my dad was just like, okay, whatever you do, we're gonna support you. So I come from parents who weren't as educated, but knew very early that it was something special about me, and they poured into me a lot of love. So my mother always used to say, we might be broke, but we ain't gonna never look broke, and you're gonna always go to school. Your job is to go to school, and you will never have to worry about how you're gonna get to school or how you're gonna stay in school. And she kept that promise to me all the way up to my second master's degree. That I would never have to worry about school. So I come from very humble beginnings. I know what it's like not to eat. I know what it's like to be afraid. Um, I also grew up in the 90s, the 80s, 90s, where the crack epidemic hit the Black community really hard. So I'm a product of that too. Drugs ravaged my neighborhood, my community, and my family. So I watched people who were like I looked up to um, really get totally torn apart by crack. And it was in my home because my siblings, my family members, and my father was a drug addict for many years. So I had to figure it out, right? Like my world was in chaos. But the one thing I have to always say, no matter what the fact that it was in chaos, I always had cheerleaders and always had support. So when my cousins might be on a drug binge for 2 days, they knew to get me up to go to school. They knew to make sure that they came to my graduation. They made sure, like, all of those things have always. So that's why I'm like, I know that I'm chosen for this work because God has always placed people to clear the road for me so that I could be successful. It's the same thing with the people on my block. It was like, we don't know what you're doing, but we know that you about to change the
You
game for
do
the
it.
we're going to invest in you, right? So like when I came home from college, it was like a big to do. So I've always been in a space where people have paved the way for me. So I believe deeply in that. I went to high school. I went to a top high school in New York City. Probably one of the best, tested into it, always did really well, was a valedictorian of my middle school class, and then got accepted to this very prestigious school. And I hated it because I chased the prestige and I didn't chase what I needed for me. And I was going through what I now realize a really severe depression because of what was happening in my family dynamic. So I was sitting in my ninth grade class and remember thinking to myself, like, I would take the train to school for 2 hours every day. But this might be after a Thursday or Friday night after my family had been up all night doing drugs and all of that stuff. I still had to figure out how to get on a train and two trains and a bus and go to school every day. So by the time I got to school, I was exhausted. I was mentally and physically exhausted, and I detached. I remember sitting in my freshman algebra class, and a class of 34 kids, and my teacher never came to the back. Never came past my desk. So when my mother came up for parent teachers conferences, he didn't even know my name or recognize my face. And I knew from then that something wasn't right about school. Something was not right about school. I knew that I wanted to be a doctor at that point, but experience alone ruined my whole dream to be a doctor. Because I was like, I'm never going to do it. I can't master Algebra 1. They're telling me I'm not a math student. I probably should go to another school that's more of a fit for me. So I had two or three educators that really invested in me in high school. A high school guidance counselor, social worker. It was like love at first sight. And she took me under her wing. She showed me everything I needed to know about HBCUs. She reminded me of my worth, and said to me that she wouldn't stop until she made sure that I went to school. And then my English teacher taught me to love literature. So I became an English teacher because of her. We read the Scarlet Letter A, right? The Scarlet Letter. And I remember that book because she made me love reading and love school. And I'm still friends with them to this day. They are my reasons why I do what I do. Because if I could replicate what they did for me and multiply it by 10, multiply it by 100, multiply it by 1,000, there would be so many more young people that wouldn't have the experience that I did. So that was always. Now, I'm going to tell you when I went to college, right? So, because when you're the first in your family to go to college, people expect big things. So everybody was expecting
A
me.
lot of pressure.
Very much so, right? Like people don't never talk about that pressure of carrying your family with you. But the thing was, I was like, my father was like, you're going to be a lawyer and that's it. So I knew I was going to be Jay-Z's lawyer. Like that was my thing. I was going to be an entertainer and I was going to be Jay-Z's lawyer. And that was my thing. And I read the book sophomore year. I read the book Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, and it changed my life. I had to write my end of school. Oh, sorry, my junior year. I had to write a paper to describe a time where I felt invisible. And I had to make parallels to the character in the book. And I talked about my feeling in high school. And my professor, now I was turning up in college. Like my house was called Cheers. I was turned all the way up. I was, like I was the party girl, was all of that. And I'm partying, I'm chilling, turning up. It's the end of the semester. My phone rings. And my roommate is like, it's your professor on the phone. I was like, oh God, that's it. I'm going down, right? Like, so I get on the phone with Professor Martin and he says to me, are you sitting down? I said, yes. And he said to me, I've been teaching at the college level for 15 years. I've never given an A+. I'm going to give you one because that paper that you wrote is one of the most powerful things that I've ever felt and ever read. And said to me, but you have to promise me one thing. And I was like, oh God, here it goes, right? He was like, you got to go change your major and become a teacher and become an educator. You have to pay this forward. Somebody is going to be inspired by the story, and I'm not going to let you waste it. I went. I believed in him so much. I went the next day and changed my major the very next day, and I became an educator at that moment. So why do I do this? So I've been an educator. And it hasn't been an easy road. Like, it's, I talk to my friends about like this double and triple tax that Black women have in leadership. I'm still defending. I got 3 degrees, 20 years of experience under my belt. I'm probably a master at instruction, and I'm still always having to try to prove myself.
Absolutely.
But once I've passed that, now it's about having to prove to people why it's important to fight for our kids and why it's important to save the lives of children. So that's my journey. So my journey, my love, my passion comes from pain. My triumph comes from trauma. But I'm unapologetic about it. I'm not embarrassed by it. I'm compelled every single day to fight the good fight. So that, because it made me a believer. And I know my test was all about the testimony. So that's my background. I know there was a lot. I think I took up like
It was good. It was good. It was good. I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you.
That's why we like to share,
Yes.
the journey, because we wouldn't know all that by looking at a picture or, like I said, a 30-second video.
Or
If you can just,
reading that wouldn't know
Or
at
reading
all.
that energy, right? Like, but you know what? Like Mary, like that Mary J. Blige song, which is one of my favorite of all time. If you take a look at my life and see what I see, sometimes you will see I'm so blue, right?
absolutely. That's my
Yeah,
girl.
and absolutely, and that's what it is. But I got to show up, right? Because I'm still who I am. My
Right.
authenticity, I'm resilient. Like I have
Right.
resiliency in my DNA. My ancestors are resilient people. Like how dare I? How dare I
Absolutely.
sit back and feel bad for myself? Nah, I come from a long legacy of people that fought through adversity. So that's all right. I'm out here and I'm gonna
Right.
show kids that you can turn, and leaders right now that you could turn that trauma into triumph.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Before we
Being
go
in,
on,
oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to just make reference to a couple of things that, like, I catch these little things as far as you grew up with chaos around you. You grew up with chaos, capital
Chaos.
K, not even a C,
Right.
chaos
Double K.
around
Chaos.
you. Yes, but you still pushed forward regardless. You had and you attached yourself to mentors and you had encouragers even in the midst of that chaos. Some of those
Right.
causing the chaos, they saw something in you because you weren't allowing yourself to succumb to the environment. So they saw
Nope.
that difference in you and they used that to push you forward. And man, like that's so powerful because we make reference often we make reference to the fact that we always hear you're a product of your environment, but what component of that environment do you want to grab onto and how do you want to use
Absolutely.
it to move forward? And you were, exemplification of perfection when it comes to using it for the betterment of your future. And I just think it's so important for
Thank you.
people to really grasp that message. For sure.
Thank you. I mean, and it also fuels why I do what I do, because the people around me were not bad people. You know what I'm saying? Like the people that I'm talking about, the chaos, were not bad people. They're in a system that has failed them,
Right.
right?
And they have their own struggles.
They had their own struggles, right? Like, I mean, the crack epidemic, I mean, like when you're already going into a community that's struggling and then you release drugs into this community, right? So whether it's the crack epidemic because they were doing drugs or selling it, right? Like either one of those is just as chaotic. But I always saw the good in those people, in the people. I've always saw what the
Gotcha.
capability of the people. I've always saw the good. I've always witnessed the good, because I don't have any stories about any of those people directly hurting me, right? So
Yeah.
like there was chaos. I don't have that story. So like for me, that's what I do every day when I go into schools. I see possibility and dream for people that can't see it themselves. And I think I
Mhm.
got that through my life and the things that I went through in my life. So I now know that, and I am very much so convinced, under any of the monk, if there are people that take time to peel the layers back
Yeah.
and look and work to heal, then we can
Mhm.
do anything. So that's who I am as a person. That's who I am as an educator. That's who I am as a woman. That's who I am as a mother. I make sure that that's who I am as a friend.
Mhm.
So that's important. So I think that's the lesson, and why I do what I do and how I do it is from that.
So you talk about, again, like Brian was saying, that you were surrounded around people that, you were still in the middle of something where you saw, okay, this is not the life that I want to live, or this is not the life for me, but you were
Mhm.
still able to find that inner strength to say, okay, I'm still going to go this direction. I'm still going to find the strength to get on the bus, two buses, and get to my class and get to my school. If you can just talk more about um, what not only just what you were feeling, but when you were seeing these things, did you ever feel like there was a time of like, okay, you had a responsibility to help them because they were making it a responsibility to help you, like despite how the situation they were in, they were still, like you said, was saying, Samantha, you need to get up and go to school, or you need to get up and go do these things. Did you ever feel any type of obligation to them or responsibility for them, or did you feel like by you going, that was your responsibility to them,
That
like,
was my responsibility. That
okay,
when they said get up and you get up and go to school, I knew, like I always knew that was my position to play. Right?
yeah.
My position was to play. They ran, like I'm a big football fan, so they ran an interference for me. So now I either gotta be the running back
Please tell
and
me you're a
catch that.
Giants fan.
Excuse you, of course, big blue all day.
Okay,
Jesus.
I'm about to say, I was like, look,
Okay.
I'm in there too. And I be out here in Houston, and people be looking, I be going to places, and they be looking at my jersey like, I'm like, look, don't
So
be
hate
talking
the
about my
player, don't
jersey.
hate
I
the
will fight you.
game.
I will fight you.
I always tell them I got 4 rings in my lifetime. How many you got?
Look,
Like that's not many people talk like okay, but that's a whole nother story. Um, so no, it's like I knew that I had to go because I knew that they cleared the field for me. And I'm not running back that got to catch that ball and take it home, right? So like, or some days I got to play the quarterback, right? Like whatever it took. So not one time did I feel like I had to take care of anybody. I felt like I had to do what I had to do. Now I'm not saying it's not trauma in that, right?
right, right,
Because
right,
I've also become an adult that feels like they have to do everything on their own.
right.
So, but it was my obligation is to go to school, be smart, be a good kid, and do good things for our family, because that's going to be the thing that changes the game, not just for me, but for my entire family.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, when you decided to get into education, right?
Mhm.
I've been in education for 17 years. And so when I first initially went into education, you go into it like, I'm going to change lives. I'm going to do this for the children, and then every year the system started changing. You can start saying you're only allowed to say certain things, and and those things start chopping away, chopping away, chopping away, chopping away, and it's like, okay, so now we're just teaching from the book. We're just teaching a test at this point. We're not talking about life. We're not talking about choices. We're not talking about character. So I want you to start talking about in your education when you was a teacher before you got to your administration. When you were in as a teacher, um, seeing those students that came, that came across to you, whether through English class or whatever you was teaching, and you see that student that you just want to be like, okay, she's me or he's me, or this kid has so much potential, but I'm just not getting to them, right? Because
Mhm.
they're saying, because if you think about it, I always say this all the time, like even with your parents saying, we don't have money, we may be broke, but you're gonna get the things that you're supposed to get, or whatever things that you need. Parents are not like that as much anymore. I don't know if it's because it's a younger generation having, parents are just too busy. But
Yep.
now you hear a lot more students speak on, I got to go do this. I got to go work. I got to go, almost working for their family.
Mhm.
What conversations like, or tell us an experience, a time where you had a student like that where so much potential but had this work life balance that they were trying to do, because they are carrying a lot of responsibilities more than
Absolutely.
we had to, right? My mom and dad, when I lied on my application and said I was 16, because I had my own money. My mom is straight New Jersey, so before I could get a question out to her, I would say, Mom, can I? She say no.
Nope.
Like,
Don't
dang,
even ask. Right. Yeah.
so yeah, he's like, nope. And so I was like, okay, I'm tired of asking. I'm gonna start getting my own money. And so I had a very stable family. My father was in the military. My parents got married at 18, so we always had everything, right? But I was just tired of asking, so I went to go get a job. And
Mhm.
so that hustle, that grind was always, always, always in me. And I remember my dad being upset, saying, why are you trying to work right now? You got your whole life to work. Whatever you need to ask us and we're going to give it to you. And
Right.
so that has changed now when you look at our students, because they have to work. It's almost like their
Mhm.
household is part of their responsibility. So can you talk more about your experience as an educator, having those type of students where they're holding that baggage of, I have my family, I have my school, and we see it a lot in the brown community where because they're already starting to make money with their family, they don't see the
Mhm.
benefits of education, right?
Mhm.
For our generation of students, they see, I can go make some quick money. I don't really need to do this,
Right. They could do quick
because
everything. That's the problem. Everything
everything
comes
is
quick.
fast, quick. So talk about that experience as an educator and dealing with that type of dynamics with with the students and their families.
So, like, first off, like, like when I say I'm serious about that, I'm serious about that work. So, like, my daughter, she is my daughter. She's my child. Her name is Stasia. I don't know if she's on here, but she is the perfect example of that. She's a kid that I met when she was 11 years old, and she was struggling. She'll tell you a different story, right? She'll tell you she was good, but listen to me, she was struggling, and I used to say, what is going on with this girl, right? But I saw the leadership in her, right? Because she knew everybody, right? She could gather anybody. So I said, I'm gonna start a cheerleading squad. I'm gonna start a cheerleading squad just for her. Can you guys hear me?
Mhm.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we
So
can
I'm
hear
gonna
you.
start a cheerleading squad just for her. And I couldn't cheer. I had two left feet. Right. So like I was like, but I knew that I needed to do something for girls. So I called my homegirls. I was like, we about to start the cheerleading squad. She was like, they were like, none of us are cheerleaders. I was like, that's okay. We just gonna figure it out.
They
Right.
don't know
And that's what we
that.
did. And my kid um did that, right? My kid did that. She came in the cheerleading squad and made it her own. And she made me her mother. She said to me, "You're gonna be my mother." And what I didn't realize at the time is that the trauma that she had from her own mother, who just left her out to cold out. So we have built that relationship, and it is now 23 years later. She has a birthday tomorrow. Shout out to my kid. Happy birthday. She's going to be 33. 22 years later, she's still my child. So I take that. So when you ask me, do I take that seriously? That's
Mhm.
exactly what you have to do. When you see something in somebody that's like you see the potential of them. It's relentless for me. Like I'm relentless at it. I don't
Mhm.
stop until I can't, right? And
Yeah,
even when they tell me I can't, and I'm always going to find a way. So I found a
absolutely.
way to help raise this kid for 22 years that's not biologically mine, and came with some significant situations that we had to get through. So by the grace of God, she's 33, extremely successful to this day, and we have a fantastic relationship. So that's the type of work when we say when you see the potential in children. But they
Mhm.
all have potential. You don't need to see it. First of all, we don't see anything. Our kids
Mhm.
already come with greatness, right? Like I
Yeah,
tell teachers
yeah.
all the time, you don't do nothing. You just bring it out of them. Because you know
Mhm.
why? Because they come from ancestors. They have it in their DNA. They have no choice but to be great.
Absolutely.
So, so our job is to make sure that we cultivate that and have them believe even when they can't. So
Absolutely.
that is our job to do, and that is our job to keep pushing. It's easy to
Mhm.
see success that's right in front of you. It's
Oh, yeah.
hard to go. So we've got to keep pushing because so many of our kids are showing up and have such great ability, but the muck,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
is
Mhm.
covering them. So that is my work. And it's the same thing. It translates whether it's kids, whether it's teachers, what like I remember one of my friends said to me last week, he was like, he does something in the morning, like a show in the morning. And he said, he introduced me, Principal Power Pugh, right? And he's like, when I met her, I was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna slap me in the face. She look hard. She from Brooklyn. She looked like she could play
You
spades. But
gonna
when she
rob me? Like,
right,
are
she
you
gonna rob me, and
serious?
I'm like, in a suit, like, how am I rob you, right? Like, so, and then he said, but when she opened her mouth and started talking, I was like, wow, right? And I said to myself after that call, how many people are actually doing that to our young girls
Mhm.
every day, right? They see bamboo earrings. I unapologetically wear my name
Yeah.
earrings and bamboo earrings with my suit every day,
Right.
or my dress up clothes, because it keeps me grounded in who I am, and it
Mhm.
makes people know that I'm unapologetic about who I am. You're gonna accept
Absolutely.
me, and I wonder, like, how often do our girls take up space? And when
Absolutely.
people see our girls because they big, black, and audacious, do
Mhm.
they close the door for them because they've made an assumption about who they are? So
Absolutely.
for me, we're not going to do that. I'm going to empower you to understand who you are, whose you are,
You
right? Because
are.
that's the other
Mhm.
thing, whose you are, where you come from, and what you can do. And we're going to be relentless when we do that. So
Absolutely.
that's my work. That's how we get that.
I love it. I love it. I want you to kind of go back to, um, you were speaking earlier about just the struggles or the challenges that we have as Black women being in leadership roles.
Uh,
Um, and, I also had that or have that same struggle, right? Where going into, I've always wanted to be, I started seeing these challenges within, education. But then I also started seeing more of a challenge when it came to athletics, right? And so I know what athletics did for my life. I know the opportunities that it opened up for me. So when I started to run track and I started saying, I started winning a lot, right? And
yes.
I was like, yo, I can do this. And so every year I was getting faster and faster. And so when I started getting colleges calling me, and I was like, well, I can go to school for free. Now, even though my dad or my mother would have found, I mean, I would have went to college. Just the fact that I can go free, for free, my parents was just so excited, and I was excited, right? And so I know what sports can do for you, and in the type of opportunities it can expose to you. But then I
Mhm.
started seeing these challenges of the young Black men that I also went to school with, who were ranked in the state and doing all these great things. And I'm like, well, what happened to such and such? Why he didn't go to college? Why he didn't get recruited? Or why? Or he did go to college, but then he came right back? Or how can or whatever? And I started seeing these challenges as I was in high school. Then when I got to college, I started seeing the same struggles. Then when I got into education and wanted to start coaching, I started seeing these
The
same
same struggle, right?
struggles. I'm like,
Something. Same
I'm like,
struggle.
okay, something is going on with this athletics and education. What are we doing? Right. So,
Right.
like you, and you started talking about to principals and getting principles in order, I started speaking to coaches like, hey, we have to create, the UIL is just like the education system. It wasn't built for us, right?
Mm-mm.
So we talk about student athletes being student athletes, but we're more concerned about them being athletes, right? Before students. And so we talk about these challenges that they have, right? And we talk about this system that's been in place. I want you to speak more on when you saw that, okay, there has to be a change. When we talk about Black women in leadership roles, when I decided to go into being an athletic director, I had similar challenges of, well, your mannerism is really sexy, or your nails are kind of long. And are you going to wear your hair curly like that? Should
I
I
love the hair comments and questions. They're
Thank
my
you.
favorite. They're my favorite.
should I
Go ahead.
should I do this? Should I do that? Should I wear a suit? Should I wear a skirt? Should I wear a long shirt? Yeah. And so all these challenges. So then I said, okay, well, let me start getting all these different degrees. Let me go get my master's. Let me go get my doctorates. Okay, let me go get these certifications as an admin. Okay, so now I got my resume is down to 6 pages, right? So I'm like, I got all this stuff on there, and they're telling me I'm not enough, right? Still need to get some other stuff. So I want you to talk about when you decided, okay, there has to be some change right now. I got to create the change. And so
Mhm.
when you decided to create this change for your leaders, and you
Mhm.
and you said, okay, I'm going to create a system where we can implement into schools, and now I know that it'll make a difference because I'm training the principals, I'm training the teachers, right? Talk more about that challenge when people are looking at you like, okay, she doesn't know, she hasn't been there, or you come across the people that are just want to do the system, right? They want to just show
Right.
up, clock in, teach the book, clock out, go home, turn off their phone, and then they'll show up tomorrow. Whoever comes to class, they're there. If they're not there, that's on them. What's your
Mhm.
conversation like when you're running across those type of educators, when you know your value, but it seems like they're not connecting, or the leaders or the teachers are not connecting with what you're trying to, tell them
Mhm.
about or consult them on?
So I would say that's evolved, right? Like I think that's evolved over. I was so when I decided to become a principal, in my heart, in my mind, in mind, I was like, I'm going to go create change. That was my thing. They tell you to have like a 60-second 60-second elevator speech. So like that was my thing, create change. But I realized that I was jumping through hoops because I was chasing the title and forgot about the work. So I was out here and I was doing stuff, looking like I had the good suits, I had the good shoes, I had all of those things. I was talking different and showing up different because I
Mhm.
felt like I had to play the game of the oppressor, right?
Right.
Like I felt like I had to do that in order to do what I had to do. And because I was too busy chasing the title. And
Yeah.
what I realized is that the title can be taken away from you, but not the work.
Mhm. Right.
So I think I got let go from my job. I got fired on my couch in my house from my second principal position because I stood up for the families and children of Brownsville. And
Mhm.
I don't feel bad about it, right? Like,
Mhm.
it was that point on that I was like, I'm gonna change. I'm gonna change. I'm not gonna know. And I remember I went and I opened a school in the Bronx. Super proud of that. Like I was like, oh, opening a school. And I thought that the only way that I could get the school open is if I got a board of white folks, right, who could
Mhm.
open up the school. And we did. We got a school open, very successful, but somewhere down the line, we got disconnected. So when you said those conversations about your hair, I
Mhm.
remember one of the higher ups saying to me, touching my braids. At that point, I had long braids, touching my braids and asking me, "How does this work? When are you going to stop wearing your hair like this and wear it like something else?" um, and saying to me when we're going having budget meetings, I want to spend money on a college tour for the kids, a historically Black college tour. No, we need more security because the kids are wilding out in the hallway. And I was like, absolutely not. So at that point, after leaving that job, I was like, no more. I'm not trying to assimilate. I'm not trying to play their game. I ain't trying to do any of it. I'm not going to get caught up in the system.
Mhm.
And now my new job and my new role is to disrupt. this system.
Hmm.
Disrupt and dismantle, right? Because assimilate means that I need to do what they do, right? And do it
Absolutely.
well. And
Follow
that
the
would be
system.
right. That would be
Mhm.
ridiculous, right? Because clearly
Mhm.
I have firsthand knowledge of how this system has only hurt our
Hurt.
not let me not say only, right? Like, well, for the most part has hurt our children because it hurt me, right?
Right.
Like I had to figure out how to turn trauma into triumph. And how many kids are doing that? So I
Absolutely.
said to myself, no more. This is not about learning their system, right? It's
Yeah.
about infiltration, right? I'm going to infiltrate. I'm going to learn all that you know. I'm going to master everything that you need to know. But
Mhm.
that's for me to disrupt, right? So
Right.
disrupt. So when you tell me I have to be out of school, so I was wearing my hair in braids for many years. My folks will tell you, and I wear them in different colors because it was a school that told me in the handbook for elementary school kids and middle school kids, they couldn't wear colors in their hair. I said, why? We black folks, like that's what we do. Our hair is our crown.
Mhm.
So you and I, what we're not going to do is start regulating how people wear their hair as a distraction. And I said,
Right.
so when white girls blonde dye their hair blonde, is that a distraction? I'm
And
confused.
blue and
And blue,
orange
right?
and
So I'm so
green.
confused. So from that day on, I wore braids and I wore colors every single time because I got 3 degrees, and y'all ain't telling me I can't come in this room. What
Mhm.
you're not going to do is tell this little girl who's coming from Southeast DC or Baltimore that she don't deserve to be in a place that this constitution, the law says that we are mandated to give her because you are mad about how her and her hair takes up space.
Mhm. Mhm.
So from that moment on, I said, So I disrupted then. I was like, forget your handbook. This is what we're going to do,
Mhm.
right? Forget your this. This is what we're gonna do. Right. No, actually, we're gonna go spend money on this. And you know what? I'm just gonna die trying. Because Nat Turner didn't say, you know what, I'm gonna lead this rebellion, but it's possible that we might get caught, so we shouldn't do it. Now he said we're gonna lead this rebellion and we're gonna do it for the power of our people because freedom is more important than anything else. And for me,
Absolutely.
freedom for my kids is more important than anything else. So if that means that I gotta lay down, that I gotta do what I gotta do to make sure that happens. So right now, what I'm trying to do in my new business and my new venture is to really connect with principals and school leaders who have that same mindset to disrupt, to dismantle, right? And I'm
Mhm.
so excited that I get to do that work every day. And
Yeah.
disruption doesn't look like you just go and knock all this stuff off the table and flip over the table,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
well, it
Unless
does,
I'm gonna act
right?
crazy. We just
Right, right, depending on who you are and where you are, right? But disruption means to take the system that has been status quo and pull it apart and do innovate, right? Because that's the key piece that most people miss from the definition of disrupt. It's about innovate. So now we're going to innovate, but we're going to innovate in the name of children, in the name
Mhm.
of communities. So I go into schools and I help them infiltrate. I'll help talk to them about instruction, the instructional practices that work for our kids. We talk about culture and we talk about leadership, right? Because what we aren't having conversations about is that a lot of leaders like me, because I done told you I got fired, right? Like there's a lot of leaders like me that are struggling and they can't be their authentic selves because they're afraid of what the repercussions are, right? So
Absolutely.
for me, it's like, nah, I'm going to empower you. I'm going to be right there beside you. I'm going to give you the skills and the tools, and I'm going to partner and collaborate with you. And I'm
Yeah.
going to love on you because
Yeah.
this job is really hard. It's hard to do, and it's hard to do it in a system that does not support
That's
you.
true. Mhm.
So you sometimes need somebody like me to show up with all a ball of energy to be like, I just love you. What you need for me to do?
Mhm.
And that's how I show up and disrupt, and I support the disruptors. I'm a part of a large organization, OSG. Shout out to my OSG fam. They're on here. I love y'all. Like I watch my mentor, Dennis McKeesey, shout out to him, do it all the time. So I'm like, yo, if he believes this for me, I'm going to believe this for all these principles, and we're going to ride out and we're going to disrupt. And that's what we do every single day, disrupt.
Absolutely. Well, I love it. I mean, I'm glad I'm not out here doing it by myself because I know,
Nope.
people look at that as being like a troublemaker, right? Or
That's fine.
when you start having that voice within education, which is what I have all the time, when I'm saying, okay, well, we're not doing that. I tell whoever has hired me, I tell them all the time. I said, number one, I don't lead by example. I am an example. And I'll be doing these kids an injustice if I sit here and tell them a lie. You know,
Right.
I speak on why you need an education, but why you also need to have self-respect, or you need to have whatever. And so a lot of times you get that pushback with, you're a coach. Why don't you just coach? Why don't you just coach? And I tell my coach, life first, track second. And so a lot of times, you know, when you're in that system and you're doing that, you know, you start feeling this. I told Brian a long time ago, I said, and I tell him to this day, I said, I can't wait till I'm totally out of the system where I can feel, well, you don't feel like you're suffocating in your own life.
Mm. Yes.
You know, that's what you feel like. You show up and you're like, well, I know you're supposed to be saying this, but today I can't say that because I need to tell this kid this because he needs to
Right.
know.
Exactly. He
Right? And
need
so
that.
I'm not
Yeah.
going to be
You
telling
gotta
you,
tell them like it is
hold on.
sometimes.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
like I need to tell you, sit down, shut up. And so,
Right.
you
Exactly.
know, you still feel like you have to, you know, be careful because a lot of, you know, the parents aren't educated on what's going on in the school system. They know what's going on, but they don't want any parts of it. So I'm so glad that you decided to be obedient to
Hmm.
the purpose and plan that he has for your life and the struggles
Absolutely.
and the challenges that you had along the way. Because if it wasn't for you to say, I'm gonna disrupt this system, because that's the only way that there's going to be change, right? When we eventually start making our own change and we start separating ourselves from the system, they're going to be like, okay, wait, we'll make a
Mhm.
change now. We'll do something different, you know. But
Because
right
they
now,
want, because Sister Sherelle, they want our rhythm but not our blues,
come on,
right?
come on.
They
And so
want
when you
our
think
rhythm
about
but not our
Kaepernick too,
blues.
yeah,
Right.
and you think
They
about Kaepernick, right?
right.
The social justice and racism, all that stuff wasn't a factor, you know, wasn't important when it was just one person, right?
Right.
When it was
Right.
just him kneeling, they were like, oh, we can just get rid of him, you know, we ain't worry about him
Uh-huh.
anymore. And so he remained in his truth, even though he had a gift in playing football, right? But it
Mhm.
wasn't until you had LeBron James, Dwayne
Mhm.
Wade,
Mhm.
Chris Brown saying, shit, we're not playing. We're not gonna play today. Then he said,
Right.
okay, you can wear your shirt. Okay, you can wear your Black Lives Matter shirts. Okay, fine. Okay, here's a mic. You can talk now. Okay, just don't
Mhm.
stop playing. When they started disrupting their pockets by speaking their truth, then you start seeing a little more change in NBA or NFL trying to implement a little bit just to keep everybody quiet, right? And so the
Yes.
system is going to be the same when you think about education
We do
until
the
we
same
all
thing.
decide we're not teaching in your system, we're creating our own. And then we start seeing the benefits in our community with the students that come through our schools. Then it's going to be like, okay, well, let's go back to the drawing board of education. Let's start changing things now, because now they're digging in our pockets. See,
Mhm.
education is a business. So when
Right.
we start disrupting, we're disrupting classrooms, but when we start disrupting their pockets, either they're going to do one or two things: they're going to adapt or get rid of. And like you
Mhm.
said, you got fired on your couch. They said she's causing too much trouble, she's affecting
Mhm.
our pockets, she got to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, the thing is, I don't even want them to change anything. I don't need them, the people who create and keep the system going, to change anything. I just need them to cut the check,
Yeah.
right? Cut the check. Give me the money that our kids are supposed to get. And then let me, I got a crew of people. I got enough people I know and enough experts to change the game of education. I don't need you to tell me nothing. I need you to
Not,
cut the check. I need you to release the money that we're owed and that's due to us.
mhm.
Because we can do this on our own. We've been doing it
Absolutely.
on our own,
Been
right?
doing
Like,
it
we
at
had,
home.
we've been
Absolutely.
doing it in our home. So like for my business, part of my logo and my brand is I have a classroom from the one room schoolhouse and a classroom of today. It ain't much different, right? Like I think visually it could look different, but from a perception and perspective, it ain't much different, right? So the thing is, we've been doing this. We've been teaching how to read when it would cost your life, and it's still costing our life to teach kids how to read. But that's a whole nother show, right? It costs us our life, our fingers, and all of that stuff to learn how to read, and it's still costing to learn how to read. So we've been doing this. This is not anything new. All I ask is for people to move out my way, move out the way of the folks that I rock with, give us the check and let us do what we have to do, because we're no longer waiting, right? And then we're going to get to the point where we're so economically sound, we ain't even going to need you to cut the check, right? So like that's the place that we want to get to. We want to get to the place of liberation. And true liberate, like, because people want to assimilate, and then we talk about equity, and I don't have a problem with equity, right? Because equity will get us to liberation. But it's not about just giving me what you think I owe. It's about dismantling and getting rid of all of the barriers that would get in the way of someone like me, right? And I realize that true liberation isn't going to happen if we're waiting for somebody to give it to us. We got to take it. So we take it, and I take it every day by going, and I show up at Dr. Smalls, my friend, and I show up at Dr. Francis. I'm like, so what we doing today to make sure that these kids get what they need to do, right? Who we talking to today? So their job is to make sure that happens. Then I go talk to the teachers, and I'm like, what y'all here for? If y'all not here and you don't believe that you have failed if our children failed, and if you don't believe that when you decide not to lesson plan or read a book, or that you shave that time off of a child's life, then you don't belong here. And we have to have, as leaders, have to have more conversations like that. I used to start every single one of my professional development days as a school leader to say, why are you here? Why are you here? Because what it's going to take to get the kids to be where we believe they deserve to be, not where they need to be, where we know that they deserve to be, is going to require something of you that is tremendous. And if you're not ready for that, then you shouldn't be here, because you're going to be certainly uncomfortable. Because I'm walking around with my t-shirt that says Black Lives Matter. I'm walking around with my t-shirt that says I love bougie Black girls, right? Like, I'm walking around with my t-shirt that says squad goals with Rosa Parks, and I'm doing all of that stuff. And if that makes you feel uncomfortable, imagine and you in a system that you're privileged, imagine what my kids feel like every day when they're in your presence and you're not teaching them or having high expectations for them. So what we're not going to do is have these conversations about this. You need to decide now, because this is life or death work. This is not play. When kids can't read by the 4th grade, or they can't read by the 8th grade, this is not about, we talk about the school to prison pipeline. We're not even talking about that, right? When kids can't read by the 8th grade, their life expectancy drops by years. So every year that they go that they can't read, we're shaving off 5, 6, 7 years of their life. And no one here wants to be responsible for that. So you have to move with a sense of urgency, commitment, and relentlessness, and unapologetic and authenticity, because every human being wants to feel like their authentic self, and they want to feel connected. So that's our job every day, is to make sure that these kids can show up to be who they are, be affirmed in it, and feel connected to something bigger than them. And we're not going to stop until that happens. So that's the work.
I don't have a mic, but you can drop it for you.
Thank you, Brian.
That's so real.
And
the thing, one thing I love about you is that you are from Brooklyn. I have a handful of clients from Brooklyn, and they're just a completely different swag, a completely different confidence in the voice, a completely different you right now in that voice. And a lot of times, especially people like me from the South, we go in there, we try to be, nice and hospitable. Sometimes you gotta shake it up.
You gotta shake it up, Brian. I'm gonna introduce you to some people in Atlanta who's shaking it up.
For sure. Yeah, and being that I have expanded myself so much, because before 2018, I had never really traveled north of Tennessee. In 2018, I met my primary business partner. He lives in Harlem. So
shout out to Harlem.
I'm on the phone with him literally like every single day, and he's rubbing off. He's rubbing the clients that have come my way because of that connection with him. They've rubbed off. So it's a certain way I approach certain individuals depending on where they are. Like I started my speaking career here in Mississippi at the Juvenile Detention Center, and you can't go in there just thinking your expertise and your credentials are going to do the job. You got to talk to them the way that they're used to being talked to. You got to get on their level respectfully, but you got to get on their level and let them know, look, I come in here because I love you. I ain't about to sit here and baby you, but at the end of the day, I want to see you do better. When you can come with that authority, but show love at the same time, that's when you can change lives. So
absolutely, and you have to, right? Because it's not about
Exactly.
enabling, right? Like it's not about
Mm-mm.
enable. It's not about babying. It's about empowerment, right? Like it's about empowerment. And we have
Exactly.
to empower our kids. We have to empower ourselves, first of all, right? Like, because you can't pour from an empty cup. People get your overflow, not what's in your cup, right? And too often we're
Exactly.
doing it the other way around. So we have to empower folks because and then you gotta, and it's not a matter of like being on their level. It's about understanding when you go to another country, and this is an exercise that I used to do with my staff at the beginning of the school year. I used to say to them, bring your passport if you have one. We're going to take a trip. So they come and I'd be like, so I want you guys to select where you want to go on your fantasy trip. And my teachers always get so gassed and they're so silly, right? So they smile and they're like, oh, I want to go to, and I want to, and I'm like, okay. So everybody sit down, you have your place where you want to go. What's the first thing you're going to do before you go there? And they'll say, oh, I'll read up, I'll learn the language, I'll do so and so and so and so. Oh, and I'll learn the currency. I said, well, then how do you act when you get there? They're like, oh, we have to respect the culture and the customs and the traditions of the people. And I said, so what? So now tell me why you come to my school where the kids don't look like you and you
Mm.
don't think you got to do the same thing. I'm confused. Because if they not of you, if you think that it's okay to do it for people that you don't see every day, that you're only going to be there for a limited amount of time, why and what in your privilege in your life tells you that it's okay to come here? These kids are different than you. They have different traditions, culture from you. They are worth studying, right? So the thing is, it's not necessarily meeting people where they're at. It's about respecting who they are, right? And
Exactly.
thinking about how you are going to send a message with holding the respect for who people are. And in this case, it's like children. So I go in there and I'm like, hey, kid, I'm a ball of energy the same way I am here, right? And it's like, you got to go in with a level of energy. Kids need to know that you care and they could get that you care. You could go in there and you could quote Pop Smoke or whoever else. And they don't care about that because they're going to see right through how, but they want to know that you care, right? They want to know that you care. They want to know that they're safe. And how they know that they're safe is that when you're consistent in their life and you're relentless in their life, that's how they know. So you got to create safety. So I think I think a success that I have of mine is, and God's purpose is that I create safety for people. My purpose is to bring people together so that they can love on one another to make big change. That's my purpose in this life. And I'm
Exactly.
clear about that. And I know that that's my job to do. So I bring people together so that they can do that. The other thing is that I create a safe space in my heart, in my mind, and most of the time with my words. I don't always get it right with my words, but I try to create a safe space for people. That is the undergird of also of my business, is that I create a safe space for Black and brown principals who are doing the work to be who they are, cry, laugh, joke, all of those things so that they can be empowered to empower other people. So I think that's the best thing, is just be who you are, right? Understand what you're dealing with. And that is going to change the game more than anything else.
Exactly. Exactly. And really not looking to the surrounding, not looking to the world around you as an answer of what should I be. But no, like listen to that calling of what you're supposed to be and not looking at, what looks good, what looks attractive. So a lot of times you can go into certain spaces and you can try and be authentic. You're not supposed to be there. Just like you changed your
Right.
major. Like you changed your
Yeah.
major, and that changing of your major was the creation of you being able to walk in your purpose. And
Absolutely.
so many people are just so caught up with where such and such and such and such said, okay, this is the best career to get into, so on and so forth. When I first started, I was a accounting major. My dad,
Mhm.
that was the most wealthy type of individual that my dad was around. So he was like, you need to be an accounting major. Went for accounting, really wasn't focused. So because I really wasn't in love with it. So my
Right.
grades dropped. And during that time, I'm like, you know what? My sister's over here studying graphic design. Why am I worrying about comparing myself to her and trying to do what she's doing? I switched my major to graphic design. I enjoyed it, but that wasn't
Mhm.
for me. And all throughout this
Mhm.
process, my grades just dropping, dropping, dropping. I graduated high school with a 3.89 GPA. I got kicked out of college with a 1.76 GPA.
Mhm.
And that was a wake up call. But throughout that
Absolutely.
entire process, I had something inside me that always allowed me to help individuals navigate through the ups and downs of relationships, come out on that. And someone was like, "You should probably try psychology because you're pretty good at this whole helping people's thing." And I went into that degree, and everything since then is just like everything has come naturally. Everything's just been so easy for me. And you know how they say, when you're walking your gift, when you do it by default, like it's just automatic for you, but everybody around you look at you like, "Oh my goodness, how could you do that? How did you do that? That's amazing.
Absolutely.
I could never do that." So you have to discover that and know that there's a greater purpose out there when it comes to your purpose, your calling, than simply what you want. It's who you're
Right.
going to impact, how you're going to impact, what legacy you're going to leave, and how that is going to change the fabric of the future. And
Absolutely.
I love the fact that you took the next, you said the next day you went and changed
The
your
next
major,
day, the next
just
day I
like
went and
that.
changed my name. And what's interesting is
Obedience.
I called my mother and said, "I'm changing my major." She was like, "What?" Like she was in a panic. I called my dad and I said, "I'm changing my major to be a teacher." He said, "Good, because that's what you're supposed to be doing anyway." Right. So
Mm,
like when I tell you about people clearing the way for me, that's an example of that. And now my job is to clear the way for other people. So like I posted something the other day around I need to win because somebody's watching me and need to see me win because that's going to spark something in them. Right. And I take
right.
that seriously. I've never been happier in my life with my career and my work as I am now because I'm actually really walking in my purpose. And I am very clear that there are people that need to see me win. And there are also people that need me to help them win. Right. So, and when I help them win, they could see me win because they understand that that's what my purpose is. So, I am super happy because I get to go in and help people win every day. I get to bring people together to help them win. And as a result, I am winning and walking in my purpose. And God continues to show me favor. Continues to show me favor. Like, and y'all know if those of you who know
Oh yeah.
what you know, favor is unwarranted and you don't deserve it. But He still shows me favor because I've chosen to be obedient to walk in His purpose. And the other thing that He's done is that He sent people to intercede, and He sent people of I am covered. And a woman told me 3 years ago. So I was living in Baltimore, and she called me. She never saw me. She called somebody to call me. She knew somebody that knew me, and said to me, "I needed to return back to New York." And I was like, "Oh, what do you mean?" She's like, "You need to go back to New York because something major is about to happen. You are going to impact a lot of people, but you have to be in New York because that's where your covering is. So I need you to
Mm,
be." God told me to tell you that your covering is in New York. You're not going to be able to get it anywhere else. So go."
mhm,
And I packed my things
mhm.
and I moved back to New York. And I'm not sure that that I've seen the greatness, but it's coming because I feel it. But I
Absolutely.
certainly know that I'm covered
Mm,
because He continues to show me covering all the time. Every time I think that I'm tapped out, that I can't do the work anymore, I can't be who I need to be, God sends me an angel. And I
mhm,
am so grateful that I have such a support system of people and love that just are like, what I need to do, because they recognize that there's something in me. So their
mhm.
job is to clear the way from me. So it happened before, like real, but now it's happening symbolically,
Yeah.
and it's happening every single day. So I gotta keep going, right? So like I gotta keep up, keep going. I gotta get on a Peloton and exercise. I gotta take care of myself because it's something big is coming. And I know that I'm attached to somebody else's breakthrough. So I got to keep pushing.
Right.
I love
And
that.
go ahead, Brian.
Now, I was just about to say that my story is a little bit similar to that. Whereas when I finished my bachelor's degrees, I moved off to Miami, and I
Mhm.
had no intentions of coming back to Mississippi. Like to visit family, and that's it. Like no intentions. Living in Miami, you step outside the door, you see tropical. It's just beautiful. Like why would I want to come back to Mississippi?
Mhm.
That's all. I saw so many kids aging out of the child welfare system, out of the foster care system without proper to go into adulthood and not end up in prison and not end up dead, not end up having kids that go into the system. And leaders telling me that there's no money to support the programs that these kids need. And I couldn't it sit right with me. And I stayed there for a couple more months. And I was toying with myself on should I go and get a master's degree here so these people actually allow me to put forth some of these ideas, or because
Hmm.
some of the kids that I grew up with ended up in the exact same circumstances that these kids are. So do I stay here or do I go back home? I came back home. Within being back home less than a year, I had started a social business. I started a nonprofit organization. I was in the beginning phases of creating a mentorship program. And I was in the media, like so many things back to back to back to back were just lining up for me because I wasn't selfish or self-centered and say, I'm gonna stay down here in Miami. No, let me go and give back to who developed me. And I don't regret it whatsoever.
Mm-mm.
Whatsoever.
You
I've
can't.
seen and experienced so many blessings since I've come back here. There's been ups and downs, but
Mm-hmm.
and I'll give you this one story. Um, I was speaking at an alternative school. I was doing a little bit of some interviews, a little bit of research, see if I can develop a mentoring program for that school district. Anyways, I was speaking at an alternative school. There was a young man that he was getting in trouble about something. So I kind of went over and talked to him a little bit more intensively. And I learned that he was a cousin of mine. And I mean, it wasn't surprising from a small town. Everybody's related one way or another. But I had a conversation with him. I ended up taking him home. My grandmother and his mother are or were sister-in-law. So I ended up taking him home. I had a conversation with his grandmother, his older cousin. I actually played football and baseball with. Had a conversation. We just really poured into him, listened to him, let him speak. The things that were going on in his life, and I didn't judge him. Give him my phone number. Let him know. Look, hit me up whenever. I didn't hear from him for like 3, maybe 4 years. But then I got a message on Facebook. It was almost verbatim. Hey, Mr. Brown, I don't know if you remember me. This is Jaden. You came and spoke to me at the alternative school. You're one of the only ones that actually took the time to talk to me. I just want to let you know that now I got my own family. I got my own apartment. I got my own car. I got a full-time job. And I never thought my life could be like this. And I feel like it's all because you actually took the time. You were one of the only ones to take the time to talk to me.
Mm-hmm. That's powerful.
That
It's
that is
powerful.
why I do what I do. And so many
Exactly.
people, they don't get that. They don't see
Right.
like that is the best form of currency that you can
Yes,
receive. So
absolutely. It is. It is. Like I
it's
always tell
just
people,
beautiful.
chase the vision. And that's such a beautiful story, right? We would there are so many people that wish that they could have that story. One. And I salute you, brother, for doing that, because taking the time out, because you just never know. That's what words speak life, right? Hence, that's why my name is Power, right?
Yes.
So y'all probably see in the chat people saying, "Hey, Power" and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's my OSG nickname. But that's it, right? Because my work speak life, and I'm very or death, right? So, and if you're a
True.
believer, you understand what that means. So
Absolutely.
we have to think about. So you never know whose life you're going to be speaking into,
Mhm.
and you spoke life into somebody, and that's so powerful to speak life
Mhm.
into people, and it's something that is needed. There's something that many of us need to understand our purpose. Many of us need to understand not just our purpose, but our purpose in relationship, right?
Mhm.
Because our purpose is never about us. Our purpose is never about y'all won't get me to preaching here today.
Go
Right?
ahead.
Drop it.
Never about us, right? The purpose is about what he has for us.
Yep.
So, and he's going to have it for us regardless of whatever we do. So we might as well just take this purpose and run with it, right? Because we realize what happens when we don't take the purpose and run with it. And I am a believer. One of my favorite scriptures is Romans 8:28. All things come together, right? So
Absolutely.
there's no accidents. All things come together for the good, especially for the people who believe. So when you are showing up someplace and having an innocuous conversation or something like that, it's coming together. This is coming together. This is a purpose. We may not know it right now, but this is coming
Mm-hmm.
together. And if we handle every situation, we handle every child, every opportunity that we could get in front of people to pour into them like that, how the world would change.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. When you talk about, your story is when when God starts pulling on you and you start knowing like, okay, I can no longer run from this. I got to get out
Mhm.
this situation. Then, I remember when I was standing by a tree one time and I had just finished praying in the closet and crying like, God, I'm
Mhm.
frustrated. I'm tired of this. And I was leaning against a tree, and a Hispanic lady who was a secretary at the time, she just walks by, she hands me something to sign, and I sign it real quick. And then she walks a couple of feet off, and then she turns around and she says, I don't know why. She goes, I don't know where your faith lies, but this is what I need to tell you this. And I said, okay. And she said, "You're like the tree that's planted by the water, and
Mm.
your leaves will never wither." And I was like, I have no idea what she's talking about. So when
So
I went and
called.
typed that in the computer, that's
Uh-huh.
when I found Psalms 1 and 3, and it says that person is like a tree planted by the streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaves do not wither. Whatever they do prospers. She
Mm,
said that to
mm,
me years ago. I don't
mm,
know
mm,
this lady. I don't talk to this lady. I wasn't even crying, but I had just prayed to God that He would show me whatever am I walking in the right? You sent me already here to Houston. I don't know nobody. God, have you forgot about me? Have you
uh-huh.
forgotten about me? But you can see how amazing it is when you stay the course, even when people don't believe in you, even when
Right.
people give up on you, even when those people around you may not understand what you're doing. I always say that surround yourself around people that care about you, that support you,
Mhm.
not what you do. Because
Right.
when you stop doing the things that you're doing, all
It's
those people
over.
will still be there. But no
Right.
matter what, those that support you because they believe in who you are and whose you are, when they truly understand that and they're walking in their purpose, you don't have to explain stuff to them. You just tell them what you're going to do next, and all they want to know is what can they do to help. And
And you
so,
know what? You say that, and like that resonated with me. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no,
like
you're
that,
good.
I want to jump out my seat right now because that's so true, right? Like I'm sitting in a school right now. When I made my mentor talk to me, he's been talking to me like, "You're bigger than this, right? You're bigger than this. The world needs something different." I'm like, "No, no, no," like because we fight all the time. I'm like, "No, no, 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 no." And I remember like I was at the point where I was at my breaking point at work, and I got together with my mentor and some of my friends, and we decided that I would fast and do all of these things to get a lot more clarity about what my next steps were. And I remember saying, God, if you see me, if you say for me to walk out of here, just help me feel comfortable because I'm scared. And 20 minutes later, the principal of this school called me and said, I got some work for you to do. What are you doing? I don't even know. I hadn't spoken to her in 2 years. I have some work for you to do. And I said, okay, got it. And from that moment, and I remember telling my mentor, you put me in this space and you help me. I promise you, God has already shown me. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but if you help me, I'm going to do and carry out my purpose. So every morning when I wake up, I understand that purpose even more. I have an even greater purpose because all I did was ask. I said, show me. And he showed me. And he sent people to me and still do. So like I got a group of friends. Shout out to the cool kids, hashtag cool kids. They said, Power, what you need to do? We got you. And that is exactly what has happened for the last, I would say 3-4 months. Everybody said, okay, I got you. Just go. Just go and I got you. But that's been the narrative. What I realized at this moment is that's been the narrative of my life. So that's been the calling, is to trust God and trust the people that he puts in my life, because they're going to clear the way for me. I just got to go. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Wow. And I always think about, when I do feel tired or I feel like I'm trying to plan too much, I always think about Proverbs 18,
Ooh,
where you talk about your gifts will make room for you. And
ooh, girl.
he will place you where he needs to place you so you can do your work. And
That's
so
right.
that's what I hold on to, even when I feel like it doesn't look the way I feel it should look, or I'm not going as fast as I think I should be going. I just, you have to continue to press and trust God in the process. And I always say, not to prepare, not to just pray to, not to just pray for the things that you want, but pray that you're prepared for what he's going
Yes,
to do.
pray that you are
You know,
prepared.
that you are prepared, because when you blow up and you ain't ready and it don't work, it's on you. Because you should be like, Lord, bring me this, and he bring it to you and you mess it up,
Right.
So,
Right, because you know what he told Lazarus, take up your pallet and walk. He didn't go
absolutely,
and pick him up. He said, take up your pallet and walk.
absolutely,
Go.
absolutely.
So that's what he told me. Take up your pallet and walk.
There
You're
you
gonna
go.
be fine. So that's what I say to people, to encourage them. And it's hard. This work is hard. It's hard to be black. It's hard to be black woman. It's hard to be
Mhm.
a black man. It's hard to be an educator in this. It's hard to be a principal. And it's not getting any easier.
Mm-mm.
But you got to know who you are and whose you are. Because
Abs-
when you get clear on that, you know that there's nothing that you can't accomplish. You understand that this is temporary for right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. I always say that your current situation is only temporary.
Yep. The
So
folks didn't know they was coming to church tonight, y'all.
hey,
They didn't
well,
know.
oh
I
well,
didn't even know.
oh well.
'Cause I am
That's
still of the world. Let's not get it twisted. I just know what I know, what I know, what I know. Right?
absolutely.
Learn
It
today.
is. It is what it is. So
That's right. He know my heart.
I let us know what you have, how we can support you, what events you may have coming up, any books that you have that we can read and put on here, and where people can find you.
Okay, so I have last year I co-authored a book. It's called Teaching Brilliant Black Girls. You can find that on my website. I'm Samantha Pugh. It's spelled Pugh, SamanthaPugh.org. You can pick that book up there. I got a lot of exciting projects that I can't talk about right now, but I will come back. But there are a couple of books coming out this year. Super excited. A couple of books coming out this year that y'all are gonna really love. We may be visually in a place this year as well, so you may see us. We may be fellow podcasters. I am Yeah, the exciting stuff I'm doing is showing up every day in schools, like what we doing, how we disrupting and dismantling. I have, so soon as I'm able to talk about those
Okay.
things, I
Make
will
sure
be
you
happy
share.
to come back and drop it for you guys. But
Yes.
22 is going to be big. Right?
Hey, come
Big,
on.
big, 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 big. So get ready for Samantha Pugh, Principal Power. Get ready for Courage. My name of my company is Courageous Solutions, and it's spelled courageous, but rage is in capital letters, because I believe in the James Baldwin quote, when you start to be more and more conscious, more and more you start to question. And if you're Black and conscious in America, you're in a constant state of rage. So my company is about turning that rage into disruption, as opposed to it letting the rage eat you. So that's why my company is called Courageous Solutions. So we're growing, we're getting bigger. We're only in New York and New Jersey now, but we're gonna be all over the country, going into
Amen.
schools, principals. So that's all I got for y'all.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we are just excited about having you, and thank you for being a guest. But sister to sister, I really want to tell you, thank you for continuing to do you, because you're doing it very well.
Thank
And
you.
you just sparked something up in me. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I ain't gonna tell nobody just yet, but
Right.
I just thank you
But you
for,
can call me, girl. You guys, like, hit me
I
up. Like,
will,
I'm,
I will.
yeah, like, exactly. I'm not that you're not welcome, sir. I'm just
Well, we
saying that,
family now. We all
we
family
family. It's
now.
over.
So
It's over
it's
now.
it's
And I
over.
invite you
It's a
guys
done deal.
I invite you guys to come out Thursday nights to our OSG coalition, our group, we're pretty, if you think I'm dope, you ain't seen nothing yet, because it's about 100 more of me times 10. And there's a lot of us out there doing the work, and we are about not just educators connecting, but everyone connected. So come on out on a Thursday at 5. I'm sorry, at 4. And
if I'm
I'll
not
drop
mistaken, yeah, drop us some info on that. If I'm not mistaken, we had a past guest, Principal Raw, out
Yes, that's
in
my
Oakland, if
brother.
I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
Yes,
he's
that's
part of
my
the
brother.
organization.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So yes, I will
So
send you
you
guys
know
the
we in good
information.
company.
Yes,
We already know. Well,
That's
thank you
beautiful.
again. And we're going to put you in the
Thank you.
backstage, and we're going to make sure that we continue to support you in the things that you are doing. And we want to thank you for taking the time to be on the Black Podcast and sharing your story and being so free and open. And we just look forward to our future endeavors. And so take
Yes.
care, continue to do you, continue to speak your truth, because we need more leaders like you. And so we love you, and we'll put you in the backstage, and we will see you soon.
Yes, indeed.
Well, we don't have to say anything about that show, but
Another one.
obviously she is in her works, and she is, now we see why her nickname is Power, because she does bring it. And not only does she bring it, but she lives it, and she speaks it, and she is it. So we want to thank her for just being who she is, because we need more leaders like her in this space. And obedience, we talk about that all the time, just being obedient when things look like they're not how they're supposed to, or you don't quite understand it. You have to stay the course. You have to stay in your lane, because your gifts will make room for you. And the money will come, the people will come, but you have to continue to work in the purpose and plan that he has for your life. And she is definitely doing that. So excited about her. And Brian,
Yeah,
you're always just
man.
looking weird at me.
I'm telling you, from the first time she opened, the second she opened up her camera, her energy grew. And I'm like, oh my, okay, yeah, I see how this gonna be. And then when I heard she's from Brooklyn, oh yeah, that makes sense. So love it, love it, love it. Guys, we are going to be back next Thursday. I'm not sure if next Thursday is at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, but anyways, keep an eye out. We'll be back here next week, same day, approximate same time, either 4 or 5 o'clock. But make sure you share out the information, guys. Share out this, this replay. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to share. If you're watching on Twitch or on Facebook, share it out. We've had a really engaging audience today. We appreciate that, and that just shows the magnitude of our guests. So, yeah, beautiful. So y'all check us out also on Instagram at we are HSBA with the period between each word. And so our website where you can learn everything else that we do outside of the Black Podcast, mentorship program, leadership training, so on and so forth. We just out here trying to get into these schools one after another to impact one life after another. Off of that note, any closing words?
We love you, and continue to share, and we will see you again, same place, same time.